Hi everyone, John Sinclair here, talking to you today about the Core-Tex Sit. Essentially, the Core-Tex Sit is one of our most prized pieces of equipment that we use here at Seven Movements. Designed by our friend Anthony Carey, Core-Tex Sit is basically a disc that translates, rotates, and shifts. And it does that in infinite planes of motion. So the cool part about what we're going to do and why we're talking about it as a valuable tool is for our relationship we have with not only Core-Tex, but also how it can benefit people with Parkinson's disease. At first and foremost, what we would talk about with Core-Tex is it's primarily designed as a sitting device. We'll talk about how to use it to stimulate the vestibular system and to create better forms of communication. That's really where the breakdown happens with Parkinson's disease. This is a communication challenge that's happening in the body. So it affects our motor control system, but really it comes down to how we communicate back to the nervous system so that we can have control of our motor system. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a few things that you can do with the Core-Tex Sit. For many of us in today's day and age, we spend a lot of time in a seated position. And so for people that have Parkinson's, what we can do is we can use a bottom-up driver, which means I'm in control of what's going on as my pelvis driving the motion and getting a reaction that's going into the upper body. So that's really beneficial for Parkinson's because oftentimes we're delayed from the top down. So what we're going to talk about is trying to coordinate what goes on with our pelvis and how that reciprocates energy going up the chain and down the chain into the feet. So as you can see, as I'm moving and twisting here on the Core-Tex, I'm thinking about driving from the pelvis. So what I might want to do is put my hands on my pelvis and drive and help create a decoupling of the hips by just moving my hands in concert with rotation. Then we can switch to some little circles. Again, now we're trying to have control of the pelvic bones. If I have better control of the pelvic bones, I'm going to get better reciprocation going up the chain, going up the spine. Then we can go backwards, tilting the pelvis backwards and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. So again, I can drive from the pelvis. I can even drive with my hands up here to improve my posture. I can drive my elbows down, pelvis back, elbows down, pelvis back, elbows down, pelvis back, elbows down, pelvis back, and get some nice T-spine motion as well in the flexion and extension. And then, of course, we can start working on different angles. So us having to have conscious thought of where I want to drive my pelvis and move it in different directions is going to be ideal for creating better motion and communication throughout the neuromuscular system. The other way we can do this is we can start tweaking it in a standing position. So I'm going to move the box out of the way, grab a bigger box here. I'm just going to set it to the side. I can put it on the elevated surface. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to control what's going on with my top leg is going to go on top of the box. This hand is going to go on the top of my knee just to give me a little bit more stability. And then I'm going to start working on moving this disc in different directions. So we get a whole lot of great stuff happening here. One, I've got isometric pressure through this foot driving down into the box. It's going to stabilize and create better activation of the glute. My hand is going to push down onto my knee also, so that turns the core on. And then what I'm doing is I'm starting to think about what motions do I want to create with the hand? Do I want to do them in circles? Do I want to go forwards and backwards? Do I want to go side to side? Do I want to create a little bit of an angle to it? Do I want to orientate my body in a different direction and leave my arm behind and create a different reaction into the lines that are going through the body? So now I'm going from my foot to my opposite hip, hand on here, and I'm driving this in a variable ways, which is going to turn on the musculature that stabilizes the spine. So there's lots of cool stuff we can do just from a neuromuscular standpoint. And then probably the thing that I find most impactful is what we can do with the vestibular system. So if we go back to the same idea of keeping one foot on the box for a little bit more stability and support, as opposed to standing at the side. Here I feel like I can now be grounded because I'm actively interacting with the ground or whatever my foot is on. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to go with a specific pattern. We're going to go in sync. So forward and backward driver of the hand, and then I'm going to go forward, backward driver of the head. And so now we're really talking about getting the vestibular system involved, and perhaps I might want to do them in sync. So as I go down, this is going forward, back together, and at the same tempo. Or I might change my tempo and do the double time here while the head is going back and forth. So the cool part is there's lots we can do with going side to side. I can go in rotation. And all these vestibular changes now have to allow the brain to have to communicate to the tissues of the body, and that will delay the delay, if you will, of the communication interruption that's happening. So lots of brilliant stuff here that we can make up with the Core-Tex. It's a very popular tool that can be used in a seated position and a standing position. I highly recommend you get the Core-Tex if you have Parkinson's disease. Get on our platform. We're going to show you lots of ways that we can make it so that you have better control of your daily activities. Thanks again.